Welcome to another nighttime journey with Lieutenant Columbo. As the year winds down and darkness comes earlier, we gather for stories. November brings its particular quality of light, that golden afternoon that fades too quickly, the chill that creeps in with sunset, the fog that rolls off the Pacific and blankets everything in soft silence. It's a contemplative month, a time of reflection before the holidays arrive with all their noise and expectation. Find your most comfortable position. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress. Notice how your shoulders can drop just a little further from your ears. Let your hands rest wherever they fall naturally. No need to arrange anything. Just be. Tonight, we travel to Santa Monica, to a beautiful coastal estate where the fog is rolling in thick and cold. Lieutenant Columbo has been called away from his evening at home, from whatever simple dinner his wife had prepared, from the comfort of his worn armchair. There's been a death, a professor, a man of words and literature, found in his study surrounded by books. And something about it isn't sitting right with anyone. For those returning, thank you for making this a part of your nighttime ritual. A like helps others discover these stories. For newcomers, welcome to our community of mystery-loving sleep seekers. Now, close your eyes if you wish. Let the world fall away. Let us begin. November in Los Angeles is not winter. Not really. Not the way other places understand winter. But it carries its own particular melancholy, especially near the ocean. The light changes. The marine layer settles in earlier each evening, transforming the coast into something otherworldly, muffled, distant from itself. At 7 o'clock on this Tuesday evening, the fog was already thick along the Santa Monica coast. It obscured the line where ocean met sky, turned street lights into soft halos, made familiar streets feel foreign. The temperature dropped to 52 degrees, unseasonably cold for Southern California, the kind of cold that caught people unprepared, that made them dig through closets for sweaters they'd forgotten they owned. The house at 447 Castellam Mare Drive sat on a bluff, overlooking the Pacific, though tonight the view was reduced to a wall of grey. It was a mid-century modern structure, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, the kind of architecture that usually celebrated its connection to the landscape. Tonight, those windows reflected only fog and the warm lights from within, making the house seem like a ship floating in an empty sea. Inside, the study was warm. Too warm, perhaps. Someone had turned the thermostat up to 78, an attempt to combat that bone-deep chill that comes from marine air. The room was lined with bookshelves, custom-built, mahogany, floor-to-ceiling on 3 walls. Thousands of volumes, poetry and fiction, literary criticism, philosophy, leather-bound first editions mixed with worn paperbacks. The accumulated knowledge of a lifetime in academia. On the desk sat a laptop, its screen dark. Beside it, a coffee cup, white porcelain, half full. A lipstick mark on the rim though. No lipstick had touched those lips for hours. A fountain pen lay uncapped. A legal pad showed notes in elegant handwriting, lecture notes perhaps, or the beginning of something else. The handwriting grew shakier toward the bottom of the page, the last few words barely legible. The leather desk chair was pushed back, angled slightly to the left. On the Persian rug beside it, Professor Malcolm Ashford lay on his right side, his face turned toward the bookshelves, as if he'd been reading their spines when he fell. His eyes were open but unseeing. His right hand was extended, fingers slightly curled, reaching for nothing. His left hand rested on his chest, clutching at the fabric of his cardigan, a rich burgundy cashmere, the kind of thing a literature professor would wear while working at home on a cold evening. He'd been 62 years old, silver-haired, distinguished, the kind of man who wore bow ties unironically and could quote Tennyson from memory. He'd taught at UCLA for 34 years. He'd published 7 books of literary criticism. He'd been beloved by some students, feared by others, respected by all. And now he was dead on the floor of his study, the fog pressing against the windows, the house so quiet you could hear the distant sound of waves breaking somewhere below in the darkness. The call came in at 7:43. The woman's voice was controlled, almost eerily so. No hysteria, no tears, Just facts delivered in measured tones. My father isn't breathing. I've checked for a pulse, there isn't one. I believe he's dead. The address is 447 Castellamare Drive in Santa Monica. The dispatcher tried to keep her on the line, asked about CPR, about what had happened. The woman she'd identified herself as Dr. Claire Ashford explained that her father had been dead for some time. The body was cool. Rigor mortis had begun to set in. CPR would be futile. Yes, she was certain. She was a physician. She knew what death looked like. The first officers arrived at 7:58. Their patrol car's lights painting blue streaks through the fog. The house's front door was already open. Tar! Ashford stood in the foyer waiting for them, backlit by the warm interior lights, a slim silhouette in dark clothes. Officer Chen entered first, his partner Rodriguez behind him. The woman didn't move to greet them, just gestured toward the study with one hand. "He's in there," she said. Her voice was steady. Her face was composed. She was perhaps 40, dark-haired, sharp-featured, wearing black slacks and a grey cashmere sweater. No jewelry except a simple watch. No makeup that Officer Chen could detect. She looked like someone who dressed for a business meeting, not someone who just found her father dead. Chen moved to the study while Rodriguez stayed with the woman, began the preliminary questions. When had she found him? When had she arrived at the house? Had she touched anything? Was anyone else present? In the study, Chen knelt beside the body. Confirmed what Dr. Ashford had already told them. The man was dead. Had been dead for at least an hour. Maybe more. There was no obvious trauma, no blood, no wounds, no signs of struggle. The room was undisturbed. It looked like a man who'd simply stood up from his desk and collapsed. Heart attack, probably. Stroke, maybe. Something sudden and natural. It happened, but Chen was thorough. He looked around carefully before touching anything. He noted the coffee cup, the open laptop, the scattered papers. He noted that the desk drawers were closed, that the books on the shelves appeared undisturbed, that nothing seemed out of place except for the body on the floor. He noted one other thing. The window on the far wall, overlooking the ocean, was open about 3 inches. Cold air and wisps of fog were drifting in. Strange, on a night this cold, strange that someone would open a window when the heat was turned up so high. Rodriguez called for the coroner and for a supervisor. The supervisor, Sergeant Walsh, arrived at 8:20 and made the decision that would change everything. He'd worked enough death scenes to trust his instincts, and something about this one made him uncomfortable. The daughter was too calm. The open window bothered him. The whole scene felt staged somehow, though he couldn't articulate why. At 8:35, he called Lieutenant Columbo. The phone rang just as Columbo was settling into his chair with a sandwich. His wife had made pot roast, beautiful pot roast, tender and perfect. And he'd taken his plate to the living room with plans to watch the bowling tournament. Not that he cared much about bowling, but there was something soothing about it. The repetitive motion, the quiet concentration of the bowlers. He looked at the phone, looked at his sandwich, sighed in that particular way he had. His wife called from the kitchen. "That's work, isn't it?" "Probably," he said. He picked up the receiver. Columbo. He listened for 3 minutes, asking only a few questions, then hung up and stood with another sigh. His wife appeared in the doorway, already holding his coat, the rumpled beige raincoat that he wore regardless of weather, regardless of occasion. "Don't wait up," he said, kissing her cheek. "And save me some of that pot roast." 25 minutes later, his Peugeot 1959 403 convertible that backfired regularly and smoked even more regularly pulled up behind the patrol cars on Castellamare Drive. The fog was thicker now, reducing visibility to maybe 30 feet. The ocean was invisible, but you could hear it, that constant low thunder of waves. Columbo emerged from the car wearing the raincoat over a brown suit that had seen better days. His tie was loose. His hair needed cutting. He looked exactly like what the wealthy residents of this neighborhood would expect from a city detective. Rumpled, working class, probably not very bright. which was, of course, exactly how he preferred it. Sergeant Walsh met him at the door. "Thanks for coming, Lieutenant. I know it's late." No, that's fine. That's what they pay me for, right?" Columbo smiled, that disarming smile that made people relax. "So what have we got?" They walked toward the study, as Walsh explained. "Professor, found dead," daughter called it in. "Looks natural, but something feels off." Walsh couldn't explain what exactly. "Just a feeling." "Feelings are important," Columbo said. "I've learned to trust him. My wife, she's got great instincts. She can tell when something's wrong just by the way I walk in the door." It's amazing, really. In the study, Columbo stood in the doorway for a long moment, hands in his pockets, just looking. He didn't enter the room immediately. He just stood there, taking it in. The body on the floor. The warm room. The open window. The books. The desk. The coffee cup. Finally, he stepped in carefully, moving around the perimeter of the room rather than straight to the body. He looked at the bookshelves, tilting his head to read some of the titles. He moved to the window, looked at how it was opened, noted that the latch was simple, that it slid up easily. He felt the cold air coming in. "That's something," he said to no one in particular. "Cold night like this, window open. That's interesting." He approached the body at last, kneeling with some difficulty. His knees weren't what they used to be. He didn't touch anything, just looked. Studied the professor's face, his position, his hands. The hand clutching the cardigan caught his attention. He stared at it for several seconds. "The coroner been here yet?" "On the way," Walsh said. "Should be here any minute." Good. Columbo stood, brushed off his knees. "And the daughter, she's here, in the living room. Dr. Claire Ashford. She's a physician cardiologist, I think she said." "A doctor. Well, that's convenient. I mean, not convenient, that's the wrong word. But she'd know, wouldn't she? About," he gestured vaguely at the body. "About death, I mean. About what it looks like." He moved to the desk, looked at the laptop without touching it, read the notes on the legal pad from a distance. The handwriting really did deteriorate toward the bottom, like someone writing while something was happening to them. A heart attack coming on, maybe. Stroke. You'd get confused, disoriented. Your hand would stop working right. "Has anyone touched anything in here?" Dr. Ashford said she checked for a pulse. Otherwise, no. She said she knew not to disturb a scene. "Smart lady." Columbo nodded. "You know, my nephew, he's pre-med, and he's always telling me about this stuff, the protocols, the procedures. Very careful, these medical people. Very precise." He walked the room once more, that shambling walk, hands still in his pockets. He paused at the doorway, looking back. "Sergeant, do me a favor. Don't let anyone move anything just yet. I'd like to have another look once the coroner's done. Sometimes I miss things the first time around. I'm not as sharp as I used to be." Walsh smiled slightly. He'd heard about Columbo. Everyone had. The man who looked like he couldn't find his car keys, but who closed cases nobody else could touch. "Sure thing, Lieutenant. You want to talk to the daughter?" "In a minute, yeah. Let me just." Trailed off, staring at something, squinting. He pulled a pair of reading glasses from his pocket held together at one hinge, with what appeared to be tape, and put them on. He was looking at the floor near the desk, at the Persian rug's pattern. "Is there something?" Walsh began. No, probably nothing. Just thought I saw." Columbo shook his head, took off the glasses, put them away. "Like I said, I miss things. Let's go talk to Dr. Ashford." The living room was as carefully designed as the study, mid-century modern furniture, original artwork on the walls, a view of the ocean that tonight showed only fog. Dr. Handy, Claire Ashford, sat on a leather and chrome chair. Her posture perfect, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up as Columbo entered, her expression neutral. Columbo introduced himself, apologized for the intrusion, for the difficult time, for having to ask questions. She waved away the apologies with a small gesture. "It's your job, Lieutenant. I understand. What do you need to know?" He sat across from her, pulling out a small notebook and a pen. The pen didn't work on the first try. He scribbled on the corner of a page until the ink started flowing. She watched this without comment, without impatience. "So if you could just walk me through this evening. What time you got here, what you found, anything you noticed." Her account was clear and chronological. She'd arrived at 6:45. She came to the house every Tuesday evening, had done so for the past 8 months, since her father had some health concerns. They would have dinner together. She'd brought takeout tonight from a Thai restaurant. She'd called ahead to let him know she was coming, around 6:30. He hadn't answered his cell, which wasn't unusual. He often left it in another room, forgot about it. When she arrived, she'd used her key to let herself in. The house was quiet. She'd called out. No answer. She'd found him in the study, already deceased. She'd checked for vital signs training. She couldn't help it, but he'd been dead for at least an hour by then. Maybe 90 minutes. She'd called 911 immediately. "And you didn't touch anything else?" Columbo asked. "Just checked for a pulse. I touched his neck carotid artery. And his wrist. That's all. I didn't move him. I didn't disturb the scene." "You've seen this before," Columbo said. It wasn't quite a question. "I'm a cardiologist, Lieutenant. I've seen a great many deaths, mostly in hospital settings. But yes, I know what death looks like. In your professional opinion, what happened here? I mean, I know you can't be certain without an autopsy and all that, but what's your impression?" She considered before answering. "Cardiac event, most likely. Possibly stroke. My father had a history of hypertension. He was on medication, but he wasn't always compliant. He could be stubborn about taking care of himself. The health concerns you mentioned. That was the high blood pressure." A pause. Very slight, among other things. He was 62. Multiple minor issues that become major if not managed properly. But nothing that would have suggested something immediate. He wasn't sick today, wasn't complaining. "We spoke this morning. He sounded fine, but that's the nature of cardiac events, Lieutenant. They can happen without warning. That's why they're so dangerous." Columbo nodded, wrote something in his notebook. "You said you came here every Tuesday evening. That's real nice. A busy doctor making time for a dad. You live nearby?" "Brentwood. About 20 minutes away." "And these Tuesday dinners, they'd been going on for 8 months?" "Yes." "Was there a particular reason? You said health concerns." Another pause, longer this time. "My father and I had been estranged for some years. We reconnected last March. The Tuesday dinners were part of that rebuilding our relationship." "Estranged," Columbo said it gently. "That must have been hard, losing all that time." "Yes." Her face didn't change. "It was." "Can I ask what caused the estrangement?" Now she did show emotion, a brief tightening around her eyes. "Personal family matters, Lieutenant. Nothing relevant to his death." No, of course. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pry. I'm just trying to understand the situation. You understand the whole picture." He smiled apologetically. "My wife says I ask too many questions. She's probably right." He flipped through his notebook as if looking for something, though his next question seemed to come from nowhere in particular. "The window in the study that was open when you arrived." I'm not sure. I didn't notice." "You didn't feel the cold air?" "It's pretty cold in there with that window open. I was focused on my father, Lieutenant. I wasn't paying attention to windows." Sure. Of course." He nodded. "You know, I was just wondering. Your father, working in his study on a cold night like this, would he normally open a window? Was he the type who liked fresh air?" I really couldn't say. I'd only recently started coming here regularly. I didn't know his habits that intimately." Right. 8 months, you're still learning things." He stood, put away his notebook. "Well, I won't keep you any longer. I know this is a terrible shock. Is there someone who can stay with you tonight? Family, friend? I'm fine, Lieutenant. I'm accustomed to functioning under stress. Still, it's your father. That's different from a patient. You should have some support. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Grief. Guilt. It was gone too quickly to identify. I'll call someone, she said. Thank you for your concern. As Columbo walked toward the front door, he paused, turned back. Oh, just one more thing. The takeout you brought, the Thai food. Where is that? She blinked. I left it in the car. When I found him, I forgot about it completely. In the car this whole time? That's a shame. Probably cold now. I love Thai food. My wife makes this peanut sauce well. It's not authentic, probably, but it's delicious. You should try to eat something tonight, even if you don't feel like it. Low blood sugar makes everything worse. I'll keep that in mind. He smiled, gave a little wave and left. Outside, Officer Rodriguez was standing near the patrol car, staying warm. Columbo approached him. Officer, were you the one who interviewed Dr. Ashford when you first arrived? Yes, sir. She seemed pretty calm to you. Rodriguez considered. Very calm, sir. Notably calm, actually. My partner and I remarked on it. People handle grief different ways, Columbo said. Some people fall apart. Some people hold it together. Especially if they're used to emergencies like a doctor would be. Yes, sir. Still, it's her father. You'd expect some emotion, wouldn't you? Some tears, some shock? You would think, sir. Columbo nodded slowly. Did she say anything that struck you as odd? Anything at all? Rodriguez pulled out his own notebook, flipped through it. She asked us not to move the body before the coroner arrived. Said something about preserving the scene. Which was appropriate, but it was an unusual thing for a family member to think about. Most people, they're focused on the loss, not on procedure. Interesting, Columbo said. That is interesting. The coroner's van arrived then, emerging from the fog like a ghost ship. Dr. Elliot Garrison climbed out, a tall black man in his 50s who'd worked with Columbo on dozens of cases. He carried his medical bag and a thermos of coffee. Columbo, they called you out for this. I heard it looked natural. That's what it looks like, Columbo agreed. But Sergeant Walsh had a feeling, and I learned a long time ago not to ignore feelings. What's your feeling? Columbo looked back at the house, at the warm lights inside, at the fog swirling around it. I don't know yet, he said honestly. But something's not sitting right. Something about that window being open. Something about the way the daughter's acting. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just what it looks like. A man who worked too hard, didn't take care of himself, and his heart gave out. But you don't think so. I don't know what to think yet. That's why I need you to look real careful, Doc. Real careful. While Dr. Garrison examined the body, Columbo stood in the study and simply observed. Walsh had officers searching for next-of-kin information, contact lists, anything that would help them understand Malcolm Ashford's life. But Columbo preferred to learn about people from their spaces, from what they chose to surround themselves with. The books told a story. This was a man who loved literature, yes, but not in a precious way. The shelves held pristine first editions beside battered paperbacks. Keats next to Chandler. Joyce Carol Oates next to Elmore Leonard, a serious academic who didn't let snobbery narrow his reading. On one shelf, Columbo noticed a row of books that seemed different from the others. Older, more uniform in size. He tilted his head to read the spines. Betting guides, handicapping systems for horse racing, statistics and probability theory applied to gambling. All published in the 1990s and early 2000s, their spines cracked from use. Huh, Columbo said aloud. On the desk, in a leather tray, he found correspondence, most of it mundane university memos, conference announcements, letters from editors. But one envelope caught his attention. Return address from a law firm, Morrison, Klein and Associates. The letter inside was dated 3 weeks ago. Dear Malcolm, per our conversation, I've drafted the documents as discussed. Your will has been updated to reflect your current wishes regarding distribution of assets. As we discussed, the primary beneficiary remains your daughter, Dr. Sest, Claire Ashford, with provisions for the trust to be established as outlined. I must again express my concern about the timeline. You've indicated you want these changes kept confidential until after your death. But I would encourage you to discuss this with Dr. Ashford sooner rather than later. Family dynamics around inheritance can become complicated when people feel surprised. The documents are ready for your signature. Please call my office to schedule an appointment at your convenience. Regards, Stanley Morrison, Esq. Columbo read the letter twice. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his pocket. Officer Chen appeared in the doorway with information he'd gathered from the Home Office. Malcolm Ashford had taught Victorian literature at UCLA since 1969. He'd been granted tenure in 1975, promoted to full professor in 1982. He'd published widely, won teaching awards, served as department chair for 6 years. He'd retired from teaching 2 years ago, but maintained emeritus status and still published occasionally. He'd been divorced for 23 years. His ex-wife, Vivienne Ashford, lived in Pasadena. Their daughter Claire had been 19 at the time of the divorce. He lived alone in this house, which he'd bought in 1988. Modest investment portfolio, standard retirement accounts. Not wealthy by Santa Monica standards, but comfortable. The house was paid off. Any other children? Columbo asked. No, sir. Just the daughter. Friends. Boyfriends. Still checking, sir. There's an address book in the kitchen. Old-fashioned paper one. We're working through it. Dr. Garrison emerged from the study, stripping off latex gloves. Well, Columbo asked. Preliminary. Looks like cardiac arrest. But I won't know more until I get him on the table. Rigor is consistent with death occurring between 5:30 and 6:30 this evening. Body temperature, lividity, it all fits that window. I'll know more after the autopsy, but if you're asking me to commit to anything right now, I'd say natural causes. But you'll do a full workup? Toxicology, everything? Of course. I always do. Garrison looked at Columbo carefully. What are you thinking? I'm not thinking anything yet. Just being thorough. Garrison had known Columbo too long to believe that. I'll rush the tox screen. Should have preliminary results by Thursday afternoon. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it. After Garrison left with the body, Columbo remained in the house. He walked through each room slowly, getting a feel for how Malcolm Ashford had lived. It was a beautiful home, but there was a loneliness to it. No photographs of family. None of those accumulations of shared life. The kitchen was sparse, bachelor sparse. The bedroom was neat but impersonal. Only the study felt truly inhabited, truly lived in. In a drawer of the bedside table, Columbo found a chit from a Gamblers Anonymous meeting, dated March 15th of this year, 8 months ago. In another drawer, underneath some papers, he found a journal. Most entries were brief, sporadic. But one, from 6 months ago, was longer. Claire asked me today why I stopped gambling. I told her I'd finally realized what I was risking, not money, but everything. Trust, dignity, her respect. I don't know if she'll ever fully forgive me for those lost years, for choosing the track over her graduation, over her wedding, for the money I stole from her mother. But I'm trying. Tuesday dinners are a start. Stanley called about the will. I need to make this right. Not with money, though. That matters. But with truth. She needs to know that I understand what I took from her. She needs to know I'm trying to give it back. Columbo closed the journal carefully and placed it back where he'd found it. It was nearly 11 when he finally left the house. The fog had grown even thicker. Dr. Ashford had left an hour earlier. The officers had completed their initial sweep and departed. Only a single patrol car remained, securing the scene until morning. Columbo sat in his car for a few minutes, thinking. A man tries to make amends with his daughter, sets up weekly dinners, changes his will in her favor, stops gambling, does everything right, and then dies suddenly, in his study, on a cold November evening. Could be natural. Probably was natural. But that window, that open window on a cold night, that kept bothering him. He started the car. It took 3 tries, the engine coughing and smoking, and headed home through the fog. His pot roast was waiting, and tomorrow he'd start asking questions. Day 2. Wednesday. The next morning broke grey and cool, the fog thinning but not disappearing. Columbo arrived at Dr. Claire Ashford's medical office in Brentwood at 9:30. After calling ahead to ask if she could spare a few minutes, she'd agreed, though her voice on the phone had been cool, professional. The office was in a modern medical building, all glass and steel. The waiting room held perhaps a dozen people, most of them elderly. A receptionist with a kind face told Columbo that Dr. Ashford would see him shortly. She was between patients. He sat in one of the waiting room chairs, uncomfortable in that way, all waiting room chairs are, and picked up a magazine. He was reading an article about heart-healthy recipes when a nurse appeared. Lieutenant Columbo. Doctor and nurse. Ashford can see you now. Her office was smaller than he'd expected, neat and organized. Diplomas on the wall, Stanford undergraduate, UCLA Medical School, residency at Cedars-Sinai. A photo of a golden retriever, nothing else personal. Dr. Misenulainen. A photo. Ashford stood behind her desk, not sitting, not inviting him to sit. She wore a white coat over grey slacks and a blue blouse. A stethoscope hung around her neck. She looked like she'd slept fine, like last night had been any other night. Lieutenant. What can I do for you? I'm sorry to bother you at work, Doctor. I know you must be busy. I just had a few follow-up questions. Won't take but a minute. She gestured to a chair and finally sat herself. Of course. Columbo sat, pulled out his notebook, fumbled with his pen again. This time it worked on the first try, which seemed to disappoint him slightly. So, I was going through your father's house last night, getting a sense of things, and I came across some interesting items. Did you know your father was attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings? Her expression didn't change. Yes, I knew. How long had that been going on? He started in March, when we reconnected. So the reconnection and the GA meetings, those were connected? She nodded once, crisp. My father had a gambling problem for most of my adult life. It destroyed my parents' marriage. It destroyed my relationship with him. When he reached out to me in March, it was to tell me he'd been sober, his word, from gambling for 6 months. He'd joined GE. He wanted to make amends. I was skeptical, but I agreed to the Tuesday dinners as a trial. That must have been difficult for you, trusting him again. It was. For the first time, a hint of feeling crept into her voice. My father was brilliant, Lieutenant. Genuinely brilliant. His students adored him. He could make Browning accessible to freshmen who'd never read poetry. He could argue about Dickens for hours and make you love every minute of it, but he had this sickness, this need to bet on anything. Horses, sports, cards. He lost everything multiple times. My mother finally left him when I was 19. He missed my wedding because he was at Del Mar. He borrowed money from me, swore it was for medical bills, and I later found out it went to bookies. Sounds like you had every reason to be angry. I was furious. I cut him off completely. Didn't speak to him for 5 years. But then he reached out in March. Yes. She looked down at her hands, folded on the desk. He sent me a letter. A real letter, handwritten. He explained everything, the GA meetings, the sponsor, the steps. He said he wanted to make amends before it was too late. Those were his words. Before it's too late. I thought he meant before he died of old age. Maybe he knew something I didn't. Did he seem sick to you in the past 8 months? No. He seemed better than he'd been in years. Healthier, clearer, present in a way he'd never been before. Columbo wrote something down. Your father was changing his will. Did you know about that? Her eyes came up, sharp. No, I didn't. I found a letter from his attorney. Looks like he was making you the primary beneficiary. I had no idea. See, that's interesting to me. Because the letter said your father wanted to keep the changes confidential until after his death. Why would he do that? I don't know, Lieutenant. You're a cardiologist. Your father had high blood pressure, you said. Was he on medication? Yes. Lagenordation. Yes. Lisinopril. 10 milligrams daily. Was he taking it regularly? As far as I know, yes. I'd ask him every Tuesday. He said he was. But you didn't verify? Count his pills, anything like that? Her jaw tightened. He was a 62-year-old man, Lieutenant, not a child. I took him at his word. Of course, of course. I didn't mean to suggest. Columbo shifted in his chair. Can I ask you something else? Medical question. If someone were having a heart attack, would they feel it coming on? Would they have time to, say, stand up from a desk? It depends on the type of cardiac event. A massive MI myocardial infarction can be almost instantaneous. Other types, yes. There might be warning. Chest pain, shortness of breath, nausea. The person might stand up, try to call for help, feel dizzy, collapse. So your father standing up from his desk, that would fit? Perfectly. And the open window. Any medical reason for that? Would someone having a heart attack want cold air? She paused. Some people experiencing cardiac distress feel overheated, claustrophobic. Opening a window wouldn't be unreasonable, even on a cold night, even with the heat already turned up high. People aren't rational when they're dying, Lieutenant. No, I suppose they're not. He stood, put away his notebook. Well, thank you for your time, Doctor. I know you've got patients waiting. She stood as well, walked him to the door. As he reached it, he turned back. Oh, just one more thing. Last night, you said you called your father around 6:30 to let him know you were coming. He didn't answer his cell phone. That's correct. Did you leave a message? No. As I said, it wasn't unusual for him not to answer. But you talked to him earlier in the day. This morning, you said. Yes, around 9. He called to confirm our dinner, and he seemed fine then. Completely fine. Columbo nodded slowly. Okay, thank you, Doctor. He left her standing in the doorway of her office, her expression unreadable. From Brentwood, Columbo drove to Pasadena to interview Malcolm Ashford's ex-wife. Vivian Ashford lived in a craftsman bungalow near the Rose Bowl, a charming house with a carefully tended garden. She answered the door in gardening gloves, dirt on her knees, her silver hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was in her mid-60s, still beautiful, with the kind of elegance that comes from good bones and better posture. Lieutenant Columbo. Come in, please. Excuse the mess I've been working in the garden. The house was filled with art and plants, bright and alive. Nothing like Malcolm's minimalist modern home. This was a place where someone actually lived, not just existed. She made tea without asking if he wanted any, set out cookies on a plate, and settled into an armchair with the ease of someone comfortable in her own skin. I heard about Malcolm from Claire this morning, she said. A heart attack, she thinks. It looks that way, ma'am. I'm sorry for your loss. She smiled sadly. We'd been divorced for over 20 years, Lieutenant. But yes, it's still a loss. We were married for 24 years. That doesn't just disappear. Your daughter said the gambling was what ended the marriage. Claire told you about that? She looked surprised. She usually doesn't discuss it with strangers. She was pretty open about it. I think last night shook her more than she's letting on. Vivian sighed. Claire is like her father in many ways. Brilliant, controlled, terrified of appearing weak. She won't grieve properly. She'll push it down until it comes out sideways. You sound like you know her well. She's my daughter. Of course I know her, though she doesn't make it easy. Vivian sipped her tea. What do you want to know about Malcolm? Was he a violent man? Angry? Good Lord, no. Malcolm was the gentlest person I've ever known. He wouldn't hurt a fly. Literally, he'd catch spiders and release them outside. His vice was gambling, not violence. Did he have enemies? Anyone who'd want to hurt him? Enemies? She looked genuinely puzzled. Malcolm was an English professor. His biggest conflicts were over literary interpretation. I can't imagine anyone wanting to hurt him. What about money? Did he owe people? Her face darkened. That's complicated. When we divorced, our assets were minimal. Malcolm had gambled away nearly everything. I left with almost nothing. I had to rebuild my life from scratch. For years, I was furious about that. I felt robbed. But not anymore. Oh, I'm still angry about the wasted years, the opportunities lost, but Malcolm and I had reached a détente, I suppose. About 2 years ago, he started sending me checks. Not huge amounts, but regular. $500 a month. He said it was restitution, that he was trying to pay back what he'd taken. It was symbolic more than practical, but it meant something. Did your daughter know about these payments? I don't think so. Malcolm asked me not to tell her. He said he wanted to show her through actions, not words, that he changed. Columbo made a note of that. Mrs. Ashford did. Malcolm ever mention feeling unwell, heart trouble, anything like that? Not to me. But we didn't talk frequently. Maybe once every few months. Usually about Claire. What about Claire? How was their reconciliation going? Vivienne set down her teacup, choosing her words carefully. Claire wanted it to work. She really did. But trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Malcolm would say something, make some promise, and I could see her waiting for him to fail. Expecting it. That's no way to rebuild a relationship. Do you think he would have failed again? Gone back to gambling? I honestly don't know. He seemed different this time, more committed. But addiction is addiction. It doesn't just go away because you want it to. Did you go to the house much? His place in Santa Monica? Only once, about a year ago. It was beautiful, but cold. Like a museum. Malcolm was always better with ideas than with creating a home. Was there anyone else in his life? A girlfriend, companion? Not that I knew of. I think he was alone. That was part of his penance, perhaps. Solitude. Columbo stood to leave, thanked her for the tea and her time. At the door he paused. One last thing, Mrs. Dan Ashford. Where were you last night? Between, say, 5 and 8. She didn't seem offended by the question. Here. I had my book club. 6 women. Here from 6 to 9. We read Virginia Woolf. I can give you their names if you need to verify. That won't be necessary right now. Thank you, ma'am. Back in his car, Columbo sat for a moment. Ex-wife with a financial motive but a solid alibi. Daughter who inherited everything. He'd been estranged for years, who showed up conveniently to find the body. But also a daughter who was a doctor, who would know better than anyone how to make murder look like a heart attack. He started the car and headed back towards Santa Monica. The UCLA English department occupied several floors of Rolfe Hall, a brick building that had seen better days. Columbo found the department office and asked for Professor Ashford's closest colleagues. The administrative assistant, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, looked sad. We just heard this morning. Such a shock. Malcolm was. He was one of the good ones. She directed him to Professor Leonard Chen, who'd shared an office suite with Ashford for 15 years. Chen was in his early 60s, Chinese-American, with a wild shock of white hair and a bow tie that matched Columbo's in sheer audacity bright purple with yellow polka dots. His office was chaos, books everywhere, papers stacked on every surface, a bicycle propped in one corner. He cleared a chair for Columbo by moving a stack of student essays to the floor. "Malcolm," he said, shaking his head. "I can't believe it. Just last week we had lunch." He seemed fine. Did he seem stressed about anything? Worried? No more than usual. We talked about department politics. There's a position opening up, and there was some disagreement about the job description. Malcolm thought we should prioritize teaching over research. I disagreed. We had a good argument about it. Chen smiled sadly. Malcolm loved a good argument. Never personal, always about ideas. Did he mention his health? Never. Malcolm didn't talk about personal things much. In 15 years, I probably knew less about his private life than most people learn in 15 minutes. He was private, reserved. Did you know about his gambling problem? Chen's face showed surprise. His what? He was attending Gamblers Anonymous. Had been for about a year. I had no idea. Malcolm gambled. Chen sat back, processing this. That explains some things, actually. There were years, this was a long time ago. Maybe 15, 20 years when he seemed stressed about money. He'd borrowed small amounts from colleagues, always paid it back, but it seemed odd for someone with his salary and position. And he missed work occasionally with flimsy excuses. I assumed it was depression or something, but recently, in the past year, he seemed better, lighter. He was talking about writing again. He'd been blocked for years. He was excited about a book project, something about Victorian poets and the gambling culture of the era. Chen stopped. Oh, that makes sense now, doesn't it? He was writing about gambling. Did he have any enemies here? Any conflicts? In academia, everyone has conflicts. But enemies? No. Malcolm was well liked. His students loved him. His colleagues respected him. The worst you could say about him was that he could be a bit rigid about traditional interpretations sometimes. He didn't love the deconstructionist stuff, the postmodern approaches. But that's hardly a motive for murder. I didn't say anything about murder, Professor. Chen blinked. You're a homicide detective, Lieutenant. I assumed. No, you're probably right. I'm just being thorough. Probably was his heart, but I have to check everything. You understand? From Chen, Columbo got names of other colleagues, students, friends. He spent the rest of the morning conducting interviews. Everyone said the same thing. Malcolm Ashford was a good man, a dedicated teacher, sometimes distracted but never unkind. No one knew about the gambling. No one had noticed anything unusual recently. Everyone was shocked by his sudden death. By lunchtime, Columbo was hungry and no closer to understanding what had happened in that study. He stopped at a diner near campus, ordered a sandwich and coffee, and spread his notes across the table. A pattern was emerging, but not the one he'd expected. This wasn't a man with obvious enemies. This was a man trying to rebuild his life, make amends, do better, and then he died. Except that window, that damn window kept bothering him. At 2 o'clock, Columbo met Dr. Garrison at the county morgue. The building was cold and smelled of disinfectant and something else, something chemical and sweet that Columbo had never gotten used to, despite decades of visiting similar places. Garrison led him to an exam room where Malcolm Ashford's body lay on a steel table, covered by a sheet. Columbo had seen hundreds of bodies, but it never got easier. There was something fundamentally wrong about death, something that violated every instinct. What you've got, Doc? Garrison pulled on gloves and folded back the sheet, revealing Ashford's torso. Classic presentation of cardiac arrest. No obvious external trauma. No defensive wounds. Toxicology is still pending, but preliminary blood work shows nothing immediately suspicious. Heart attack then? Well, that's where it gets interesting. Garrison moved to a light board where X-rays were displayed. See this? His coronary arteries show significant atherosclerosis hardening plaque buildup. Not surprising for a man his age with hypertension. But here's the thing. The amount of blockage, while substantial, isn't consistent with a massive sudden MI. In English, Doc, his heart disease was bad enough to kill him eventually, but probably not bad enough to kill him last night without warning. People with this level of arterial disease usually have symptoms: angina, chest pain, shortness of breath on exertion. They have warning signs. From what you've told me about his activities yesterday, he was functioning normally all day. So what killed him? His heart stopped. That part's certain. Why it stopped, that I can't tell you yet. Could have been arrhythmia, an electrical problem rather than a plumbing problem. Could have been an undiagnosed condition. Could have been bad luck. Sometimes hearts just quit. Or, Garrison looked at him, or something triggered the cardiac arrest. Something external. Like what? That's what toxicology will tell us. If he ingested something, inhaled something, was injected with something, we'll find it. But these tests take time, Columbo. I'm rushing them. But we are still looking at another 24 to 48 hours. What kind of something are we talking about? Poison? There are substances that can trigger cardiac arrest in someone with pre-existing heart disease. Certain drugs, certain chemicals. They wouldn't necessarily show up on standard tox screens. You have to know what you're looking for. But you're looking? I'm looking at everything. Trust me. Columbo nodded, staring at the X-rays. Let me ask you this, Doc. If someone wanted to kill a man with a bad heart and make it look natural, how would they do it? Garrison pulled off his gloves. Dozens of ways. The simplest would be to trigger a cardiac event using a substance that mimics or exaggerates existing conditions. Potassium chloride, for instance. It causes cardiac arrest, and it occurs naturally in the body, so it's hard to detect. Certain beta blockers in high doses could do it. Even insulin in a non-diabetic could cause enough stress to trigger an event. And these would all show up on tox screens. Most of them, yes. If we're looking, some are trickier than others. What about something that wouldn't show up at all? Garrison was quiet for a moment. There are a few substances. Experimental things, research chemicals, certain plant-based toxins that are difficult to test for because they metabolize quickly or because we don't routinely screen for them. But we're talking sophisticated knowledge here. Not something the average person would know about or have access to, but a doctor would. A doctor might. Especially a cardiologist. Columbo thanked him and left. In his car, he sat thinking, if Claire Ashford had wanted to kill her father and make it look natural, she had the knowledge and the opportunity. She found the body. She could have been there earlier, done something, left and come back. Her timeline was based entirely on her own statement. But why? She was inheriting anyway. Why not just wait for nature to take its course? Unless there was something else. Something he hadn't found yet. Back at the station, Columbo found a message waiting. Malcolm Ashford's financial records had been subpoenaed and were ready for review. He spent the next 2 hours going through bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts. What he found made him sit back and whistle. For the past 8 months, Malcolm Ashford had been making monthly transfers to an account belonging to one Thomas Brennan. $2,000 a month, like clockwork. $16,000 total. A quick background check revealed that Thomas Brennan was 43, lived in Long Beach, and had a criminal record: assault, bookmaking, loan sharking. He'd served 3 years in prison 15 years ago. Columbo called the Long Beach Police Department, asked if they knew Brennan. They did. He still worked on the periphery of illegal gambling, still took bets, still ran a small operation. Nothing big enough to warrant major enforcement attention, but he was known. "You think Ashford was paying off a gambling debt?" the Long Beach detective asked. "I think I need to talk to Mr. Brennan." He found Brennan at a sports bar in Long Beach, watching basketball games on multiple screens and taking notes in a small ledger. Brennan was heavy-set, balding, wearing a tracksuit that had seen better days. He looked up when Columbo showed his badge, sighed, and gestured to a booth. "What now?" "Malcolm Ashford." "Know him?" Brennan's face showed genuine surprise. "Malcolm? What about him?" "He's dead." "Dead?" Brennan looked stricken. "What happened?" "Heart attack, looks like. But I'm trying to understand his financial situation. He was paying you $2,000 a month. Why?" Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You're gonna think it's something illegal, is it?" "No. I mean, yeah, I still take bets, but Malcolm wasn't betting. Not anymore. He'd quit. Over a year ago, he came to me, told me he was done, he was going straight. And he did. Never placed another bet, far as I know. So why was he paying you?" "He owed me. From before. $24,000 total. We had an arrangement. He'd pay it off gradually. $2,000 a month for 12 months. He'd made 8 payments. Had 4 more to go." "He owed you money from gambling?" From 5 years ago. He'd gotten in deep, couldn't pay, and I was... Well, I was meaner then. Younger. Stupider. I threatened him. Scared him pretty good. Then I went to prison for something else, and when I got out, he'd disappeared. Stopped gambling, stopped answering calls. I figured I'd lost that money. Then last March, he called me out of the blue. Said he was making amends. That's how he put it. Said he wanted to pay back what he owed, make things right. I thought he was crazy, but he started sending money. Every month, on time. Did his daughter know about this? How would I know? Malcolm didn't talk about his personal life. We weren't friends, Lieutenant. We were just, settling a debt. Where were you last night between 5 and 8? Brennan smiled grimly. Right here. Tuesday night, there are games. I'm always here. Ask anyone. I was behind this bar from 4 in the afternoon until midnight. Columbo verified the alibi with the bartender and 3 regulars. All confirmed Brennan's presence. Another dead end. Or was it? 16,000 paid, 8,000 still owed. If Ashford died, that debt died with him. Brennan had a motive, but he also had an alibi, unless he'd hired someone. But that seemed far-fetched, and elaborate, and expensive. Columbo returned to the Santa Monica house late in the afternoon. The police tape was still up, the property still secured. He let himself in with the key the daughter had provided. In daylight, with the fog burned off, the house looked different. The ocean view was spectacular, endless blue water, sailboats dotting the horizon, pelicans diving for fish. It was a beautiful place to live alone. He heard a sound from the back of the house and found an older woman in the kitchen, packing dishes into a box. She looked up, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here." She was perhaps 70, Hispanic, with grey hair and kind eyes. She wore a house dress and an apron. Underlieutenant Columbo, LAPD. "And you are?" "Rosa Martinez." "I'm the housekeeper." Was the housekeeper. "I suppose I still am until arrangements are made." "You work for Professor Ashford?" "For 15 years. I came twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. I was here Monday, and now he's..." She teared up. "I can't believe he's gone." Columbo pulled out a chair, gestured for her to sit. She did, gratefully. "Tell me about him, Mrs. Martinez." "He was a good man. Kind. Always asked about my grandchildren. Always left me notes thanking me, even though he paid me. When my son was in the hospital last year, Mr. Ashford sent flowers. And when my grandson needed help with college applications, Mr. Ashford wrote him a recommendation letter. He didn't have to do any of that." "Did he seem worried about anything recently? Upset?" "He seemed happy, actually. Happier than I'd seen him in years. He was talking about his daughter, how they were reconnecting. He showed me a photo of her. He was proud." "Mrs. Martinez, I need to ask you about Tuesday. You weren't here Tuesday, but you were here Monday. Did you notice anything unusual?" "Like what? Anything out of place? Anything different?" She thought. The window in the study was open. That was strange. Columbo leaned forward. "The window was open on Monday." "Yes, just a little bit. I closed it. It was letting in cold air. I assumed Mr. Ashford had opened it to air out the room and forgotten." "Did you mention it to him?" "No, I just closed it." "Why?" "That window was open again Tuesday night. When he died." Rosa looked puzzled. "But why would he open it?" "It was so cold." "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Columbo stood, walked to the study, Rosa following. He examined the window carefully. It was a simple mechanism, just slid up and down, no lock currently engaged. "Mrs. Martinez, when you closed this window on Monday, did you lock it?" I don't remember." "Maybe not. I usually don't. It's on the second floor, and there's no balcony. No way to reach it from outside." Columbo examined the window more carefully. The screen was intact. The frame was clean. There was no sign of forced entry, no scratches, no disturbance. Did Mr. Ashford have any visitors recently? Anyone you noticed? Just his daughter, every Tuesday evening, and sometimes his colleague from the university, Professor Chen. They'd have lunch here occasionally, but no one unusual. What about repairs, deliveries, strangers in the house? The gardener comes every other Wednesday, and there was a man from the phone company a few weeks ago, fixing something with the internet. But that's all. Columbo thanked her, gave her his card, asked her to call if she thought of anything else. After she left, he stayed in the study, thinking. The window had been open Monday. Rosa closed it. By Tuesday night, it was open again, which meant Ashford opened it Tuesday either shortly before he died, or someone else opened it after he was dead. But why? That evening, Columbo drove to Claire Ashford's house in Brentwood. It was a modern townhouse in a gated community, all sharp angles and minimalist design. She answered the door in casual clothes jeans and a sweater looking more human than she had in her office. "Lieutenant, I wasn't expecting you. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced. Just had a couple more questions, won't take long." She let him in reluctantly. The interior matched the exterior, modern, minimal, almost sterile, everything in its place. Nothing that wasn't functional. The only warmth came from the golden retriever that bounded up to greet Columbo with enthusiasm. "Down, Bailey," Claire said. The dog obeyed immediately. "Beautiful dog," Columbo said, scratching Bailey's ears. "I love dogs, had a basset hound for years. Laziest dog you ever met, but loyal." "Bailey's a therapy dog." Well, she was. I used to bring her to the hospital for the cardiac rehab patients. She's retired now. They sat in the living room. Columbo on a pristine white sofa, Claire in a matching chair. Bailey settled at her feet. "Dr. Ashford, I need to ask you about your father's finances. Did you know he was paying off a gambling debt?" Her face showed surprise. "No." "To whom?" "A man named Thomas Brennan. $2,000 a month for the past 8 months. How much did he owe total?" $24,000. He'd paid 16. Had 8 more to go. She was quiet, processing this. That sounds like my father. Trying to clean up his messes. Did this Brennan person kill him? He has an alibi, but it got me thinking your father was supporting a lot of people. Paying you back through the will. Paying his ex-wife $500 a month in restitution. Paying off this gambling debt. That's a lot of outgoing money for a retired professor. My father lived modestly, and his pension was substantial. Still, it adds up. Maybe wonder if there were other debts. Other obligations I haven't found yet. I wouldn't know, Lieutenant. As I told you, we'd only recently reconciled. Right. The Tuesday dinners. Columbo pulled out his notebook. "Can I ask you to walk me through yesterday again, just so I've got it clear in my mind?" She did, patiently. Same story as before. Talked to her father at 9 in the morning. He was fine. Called him at 6:30 to say she was on her way. No answer. Arrived at 6:45. Found him dead. "And you didn't go into the house before 6:45? "No, Lieutenant. Didn't stop by earlier in the day. Check on him?" "No. I was at the hospital all day. You can verify that with my office staff." "Oh, I'm sure I can. I'm sure you were right where you said you were." He smiled. "It's just that there's this one thing that's bothering me. See, the housekeeper, Mrs. Martinez. Real nice lady. She told me the window in your father's study was open on Monday. She closed it. But by Tuesday night, it was open again. So my father opened it. That's what I figured. Except, it was such a cold night. And he turned the heat up to 78. Why would someone turn the heat up high and then open a window? I told you before, people aren't rational when they're dying. Yeah, you did say that. But here's what's bothering me. What if he opened that window before he was dying? What if he opened it because the room was too hot, and he made it too hot for a reason? Like maybe to hide something? Some smell, some evidence. Claire's expression didn't change. "I don't understand what you're suggesting." "I'm not suggesting anything, just thinking out loud. See, my problem is this. Your father dies of a heart attack. That's what it looks like. That's what the evidence says. But the coroner tells me your father's heart disease wasn't bad enough to kill him suddenly without warning, so something triggered the cardiac arrest. And that something probably shows up on toxicology. But what if it doesn't? What if someone knew exactly how to trigger a heart attack in someone with pre-existing conditions, using something that wouldn't show up? That would require sophisticated medical knowledge. Yeah, like a cardiologist would have. She stood. Lieutenant, I think you should leave. He stood too, put away his notebook. I'm sorry if I've offended you, doctor. I'm just trying to understand what happened. Your father was a good man trying to make amends. Someone took that away from him. Whether it was natural or not, that's a tragedy. At the door, he paused. One more thing. You mentioned your father called you at 9 yesterday morning to confirm dinner. What exactly did he say? Just that he was looking forward to seeing me. That he had something he wanted to discuss. Did he say what? No. Weren't you curious? I assumed it was about the usual things. His research, something he'd read. A student. My father always had something he wanted to discuss. But maybe it was about the will. Maybe he was going to tell you about the changes. Maybe. I'll never know now, will I? Columbo nodded slowly and left. Thursday morning brought the toxicology results. Columbo met toxicology results. Columbo met Dr. Garrison at his office at the medical examiner's building. Garrison looked tired, like he'd been up all night. You're not going to believe this, he said, spreading the reports across his desk. Try me. Malcolm Ashford died of cardiac arrest triggered by acute digitalis toxicity. Columbo frowned. Digitalis? That's a heart medication, isn't it? It's derived from foxglove plants. In therapeutic doses, it's used to treat certain heart conditions, but in higher doses, it's toxic. It causes nausea, visual disturbances, arrhythmia, and eventually cardiac arrest. And here's the thing. Ashford wasn't prescribed digitalis. He was on the Cinepril for his blood pressure, but not digitalis. So someone gave it to him? Someone gave him a lot of it. Based on the levels in his blood, I'd estimate he ingested somewhere between 5 and 10 times the therapeutic dose. That's not an accident. That's not taking the wrong medication by mistake. Could he have taken it intentionally? Suicide? There was no suicide note. No history of depression that you found, and digitalis is a terrible way to commit suicide. It's slow, unpleasant, and uncertain. If Ashford wanted to kill himself, he had access to much easier methods. So we're talking murder. We're talking murder. We're talking murder. Columbo sat down heavily. This changed everything. How would someone administer digitalis? Food? Drink? Most likely. It can be ingested orally, pills crushed into food or liquid. It's bitter, but if mixed with something strong tasting, it might not be noticed. Based on the timeline, he probably ingested it sometime in the late afternoon or early evening. The symptoms would have started within an hour or two: nausea, dizziness, visual disturbances. Then cardiac arrhythmia, then arrest. The coffee cup on his desk, could it have been in that? Possibly. Did you keep it? It's in evidence. I'll have it tested. Good. But Columbo, here's the complication. Digitalis is metabolized fairly quickly. By the time someone found him and we got the body, most of it was already gone from his system. We caught it because I was specifically looking for cardiac glycosides. If I'd done just a standard tox screen, I might have missed it. So whoever did this was counting on it being missed. Counted on it looking natural? That would be my guess. Columbo stood, paced the small office. Who has access to digitalis? Doctors, nurses, pharmacists. But you don't need a prescription to get it. You can extract it from foxglove plants if you know what you're doing. It's not common knowledge, but it's not secret either. There are websites, forums, books, but a doctor would know. A cardiologist especially would know. A cardiologist would know exactly how much to use to trigger arrest in someone with Ashford's cardiovascular profile. They'd know it would look natural. They'd know that by the time anyone thought to test for it specifically, it would be mostly metabolized. Columbo stopped pacing. The daughter found the body. She's a cardiologist. She had access, knowledge, and opportunity. And she inherits. But Garrison could hear the hesitation in Columbo's voice. But it doesn't feel right. Why go to all this trouble? Why not just wait? The man was 62 with high blood pressure and a history of stress. He could have died naturally any time. Why risk murder? Maybe she didn't want to wait. Or maybe there's something else. Something I'm missing. The rest of Thursday and into Friday, Columbo worked the case from every angle. He had the coffee cup tested negative for digitalis, but that didn't mean much. The coffee had been sitting there for 2 days before being collected as evidence. Any residue could have evaporated. He interviewed Dr. Ashford's colleagues again, this time asking specifically about digitalis. None of them had access. None of them would know how to use it as a weapon. He checked the house for foxglove plants. The garden had been professionally landscaped, mostly succulents and native plants suitable for the coastal climate. No foxglove. He looked into Claire Ashford's background more deeply. Born in Los Angeles, grew up in Pasadena. Excelled in school, Stanford on a full scholarship, med school at UCLA, top of her class, residency in cardiology at Cedars-Sinai, now in private practice, well respected, no complaints, no disciplinary actions, no criminal record, no financial problems. By all accounts, a model citizen. She'd been married briefly in her late 20s, divorced after 3 years. No children. No current romantic relationship that anyone knew about. Her alibi for Tuesday was solid. She'd been at the hospital from 7 in the morning until 5:30 in the afternoon. Multiple people confirmed seeing her. She'd left the hospital at 5:30, stopped at the Thai restaurant at 6, picked up food, and driven to her father's house, arriving at 6:45. If she'd killed her father, she'd done it between 6:45 and 7:43 when she called 911. But the coroner said Ashford had been dead for at least 90 minutes when the first officers arrived at 7:58. That put time of death around 6:30 at the latest. Before Claire said she arrived. Unless the coroner was wrong about the time of death. Or unless Claire had arrived earlier than she claimed. Columbo called the Thai restaurant. They remembered her. She was a regular, came in every Tuesday around 6. They'd had her order ready. She'd paid, left. The whole transaction took maybe 5 minutes. 6 to 6:05. It was a 15-minute drive from the restaurant to the house. She should have arrived at 6:20 at the latest. But she said she'd arrived at 6:45. 25 minutes unaccounted for. He called her office, reached her service. She called back within 10 minutes. Dr. Ashford, one quick question. Tuesday night, you left the hospital at 5:30, you said. Yes. Her voice was guarded now. And you got to the restaurant around 6. Yes. But the restaurant's only 15 minutes from the hospital. Where were you for that 15 minutes? A pause. I stopped at home. I needed to change clothes, feed my dog. Your home in Brentwood? Yes, but that's 25 minutes from the hospital and 15 minutes from the restaurant. In the wrong direction. Yes. I suppose the timing doesn't work perfectly. Traffic was heavy, and then you went from the restaurant to your father's house. That's 15 minutes. But you said you arrived at 6:45. The restaurant says you left at 6:05. That's 40 minutes. I told you. I called my father from the car. I drove slowly. I may have stopped for gas. I don't remember exactly, Lieutenant. I wasn't watching the clock. Right. I'm just trying to establish the timeline. Thanks, Doctor. He hung up and stared at his notes. The timeline didn't work. She was hiding something. Friday afternoon, Columbo met with his captain to review the case. Captain Delgado was a practical man who'd worked his way up from patrol, and he didn't like ambiguity. What you've got, Columbo? Malcolm Ashford was murdered. Poisoned with digitalis. Killer has medical knowledge. Primary suspect is his daughter, Dr. Sill. Killer has medical knowledge. Primary suspect is his daughter, Dr. Claire Ashford. She's a cardiologist she inherits, and her timeline for Tuesday night doesn't hold up. What about the ex-wife? Solid alibi. Book club with 6 witnesses. The gambling connection. Guy he owed money to has an alibi too. And frankly, Brennan had no reason to kill Ashford. Ashford was paying off the debt regularly. Dead, the debt disappears. But so does the income. Other suspects. No one with motive, means, and opportunity. It keeps coming back to the daughter. Then arrest her. I can't. Not yet. Why not? Columbo struggled to articulate it. Something's not right. The motive's weak. Why not just wait for him to die naturally? The timing's off. How did she administer the poison if her alibi mostly checks out? And there's something about her, Captain. She's hiding something, yeah, but I don't think it's murder. I think it's something else. Then find out what. You've got until Monday. After that, if you haven't cracked this, I'm putting someone else on it. Columbo nodded and left. Friday evening, Columbo returned to Claire Ashford's house. This time, he didn't call ahead. He just showed up at her door at 7 o'clock. She answered in workout clothes, sweaty, breathing hard. A treadmill was visible in the room behind her. Lieutenant, this is becoming harassment. I apologize, ma'am, but I need to talk to you about Tuesday night. And I need you to tell me the truth this time. She stared at him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Come in. They sat in the same living room as before. Bailey, the dog, stayed close to Claire, sensing her mistress's stress. Dr. Ashford, your father was murdered, poisoned with digitalis. You know what that is. Of course I know what it is. And you know how it works. How much it would take to kill someone with your father's cardiovascular profile. How to administer it. How long it would take to work. I also took an oath to do no harm. I believe you. I don't think you wanted to hurt your father. But I think you were there earlier than you said. I think you arrived at your father's house before 6:45. And I think you're protecting someone. Her face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Your timeline doesn't work, Doctor. You left the hospital at 5:30. Stopped at home, let's say that took 30 minutes, even though it should have taken less. That puts you leaving home at 6. You get to the restaurant at 6:10, even with traffic. You pick up the food, you're out by 6:15. It's a 15-minute drive to your father's house. You should have been there at 6:30, but you didn't call 911 until 7:43. You said you arrived at 6:45 and found him already dead. But the coroner says he died around 6:30. So either you arrived earlier and watched him die, or you arrived when you said and he'd only just died, which contradicts the medical evidence. Time of death isn't exact. It's close enough. Dr. Ashford, I think you got to your father's house around 6:30. I think you found him dying or already dead. I think you knew immediately it wasn't natural. You're a cardiologist. You'd recognize digitalis poisoning, and I think you knew who did it. And you waited. You waited over an hour before calling 911. You cleaned up evidence, maybe. You made sure nothing pointed to whoever you were protecting. And then you called it in. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Bailey whined and put her head in Claire's lap. I didn't kill him, she whispered. I know. But you know who did. And you need to tell me. Claire Ashford stood up abruptly, walked to the window, looked out at the darkness. If I tell you, I need immunity. I can't promise that. But I can promise I'll do everything I can to help you. Whatever you did after the fact, whatever you cleaned up or hid, that's not murder. That's being a daughter who loved her father and made a bad choice. She turned back to face him. You have to understand, my father wasn't a saint. He hurt a lot of people. He hurt my mother. He hurt me. For years, I hated him. When he reached out last March, I almost didn't respond, but he was trying, genuinely trying, and I wanted to believe people could change. What happened Tuesday night? I arrived at his house at 6:30, just like you said. I let myself in. I called for him. He didn't answer. I went to the study and found him on the floor. He was still alive, barely. He was trying to say something, but he couldn't get the words out. I checked his vitals. His heart was in severe arrhythmia. I knew immediately it was digitalis. I've treated cases before. The symptoms are distinctive. Why didn't you call 911 right then? Because he grabbed my hand, and he shook his head. He didn't want me to call. He knew he was dying, and he didn't want me to save him. Why not? Because he knew who'd poisoned him, and he didn't want me to turn her in. Columbo felt something click into place. Her. Your mother. Claire nodded, tears streaming now. He managed to whisper one word, Vivienne. My mother's name. Then he died. Right there in my arms, he died. And you protected her. She's my mother, Lieutenant. She gave up everything because of my father's addiction. 24 years of marriage, gone. Her financial security, gone. Her financial security, gone. Her dreams, her plans, everything he gambled it all away. And then he'd had the audacity to try to make amends, as if 2 years of sobriety could erase 2 decades of damage. So you waited. You made sure there was nothing in the house that pointed to her. And then you called it in. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't let them arrest my mother. She didn't deserve that. Whatever she did, she had reasons. Columbo sat down heavily. Dr. Ashford, your mother had an alibi. Book club. 6 witnesses. Claire laughed bitterly. Those women would say anything for her. They're her closest friends. They'd lie to protect her. But why would she do it? Why now, after all this time? I don't know. You'll have to ask her. Columbo left Claire's house and drove straight to Pasadena. It was nearly 9 o'clock when he pulled up to Vivienne Ashford's craftsman bungalow. The lights were on. She was home. She answered the door in a robe and slippers, surprised to see him. Lieutenant, it's rather late. I know, ma'am, and I apologize, but I need to talk to you. It's important. She let him in, offered tea again, which he declined. They sat in her living room, cozy and warm. Mrs. Ashford, I need you to tell me about Tuesday evening. The truth this time. I told you the truth. I was here with my book club. Your book club would lie for you. Claire told me. Vivienne's face went still. Claire told you what? That her father's last word was your name. That he knew you'd poisoned him. That she's been protecting you. For a long moment, Vivienne said nothing. Then she stood, walked to a bookshelf and pulled down a volume, appropriately, a collection of Victorian poetry. From inside, she withdrew a small plastic bag containing plant material. Dried leaves and flowers. Foxglove, she said. I grew it in my garden. I'd been growing it for 2 years, ever since Malcolm reached out to Claire. I dried the leaves, ground them into powder. It wasn't difficult. The Victorians did it all the time. Why? She sat back down, holding the bag in her lap. Do you know what it's like, Lieutenant? To have your life destroyed by someone else's weakness. To watch everything you built crumble because your husband can't stop betting on horses. I worked 2 jobs after our divorce. 2 jobs just to survive because Malcolm had gambled away everything we had, and then he left me with nothing. Not even the dignity of a fair settlement. But he was paying you back. $500 a month. $500. She laughed bitterly. He destroyed 30 years of my financial planning, my retirement, my security. $500 a month was an insult. A token gesture so he could feel better about himself. So you killed him. I saved Claire. Columbo frowned. What do you mean? Malcolm called me 3 weeks ago. He told me he'd changed his will, that Claire was the primary beneficiary. But there was a condition. He'd found out that Claire had helped me after the divorce, had given me money over $100,000 over the years, money she'd earned through her own hard work. He was furious. He saw it as Claire enabling my anger, my bitterness. So he set up the will with a trust provision. Claire would inherit, but only if she agreed to reconcile fully with Malcolm, to let go of her anger. If she refused, the money would go to charity. He was trying to control her. He was punishing her for being loyal to me. That's what he did. Lieutenant, he manipulated people, made them dance to his tune. Even in death, he wanted control. Claire didn't know about the provision. Malcolm was planning to tell her Tuesday night at dinner he was going to give her an ultimatum: forgive me completely and publicly. Cut your mother off or lose your inheritance. And you couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let him destroy her life the way he destroyed mine. She spent her whole life trying to earn his approval, and he was going to use that against her. So I went to his house Tuesday afternoon, around 4:30. I brought him coffee, his favorite, from that cafe he liked near UCLA. I'd made it at home, mixed the digitalis powder in. He drank it while we talked. I told him I'd thought about his request to forgive him, to make peace. He was so happy, so grateful. He had no idea. You stayed while he died? No. I left around 5:15. He was fine when I left. The digitalis takes time to work. I knew that. I'd researched it carefully. I calculated the dose based on his weight, his cardiovascular history. I knew it would look natural, but it didn't look natural. Not quite. No. You're very thorough, Lieutenant. Most detectives wouldn't have pushed. They would have accepted the heart attack explanation. And Claire figured it out. She's brilliant. Of course she figured it out. When Malcolm said my name before he died, she knew. And she protected me, because that's what children do. They protect their parents even when they shouldn't. Columbo stood up, feeling older than his years. Mrs. N.B. Ashford, I need you to come with me to the station. We'll need to take a statement. She nodded calmly. Let me get dressed. And Lieutenant, tell Claire I'm sorry. Tell her I did it for her. But that was wrong. You can't protect people by making their choices for them. Malcolm tried to do that, and it was wrong when he did it. It's wrong now that I've done it. She should have had the chance to tell him no herself. At the station, Vivian Ashford gave a full confession. She explained everything: the growing of the foxglove, the preparation of the digitalis powder, the planning, the execution. She showed no remorse for killing Malcolm, only for dragging Claire into it. I didn't think she'd figure it out so quickly, Vivian said. I thought I'd covered everything, but she's smarter than I gave her credit for. Did she help you, before or after? No, she knew nothing until she found him dying. Everything she did to protect me, not to help me. There's a difference. The district attorney would have to decide what to do about Claire obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, accessory after the fact, but Columbo would testify that she'd acted in shock and grief, that she'd made a terrible choice in the moment, but hadn't planned anything. After Vivian was processed and placed in a holding cell, Columbo went to find Claire. She'd come to the station voluntarily when she heard her mother had been arrested. She sat in an interview room, Bailey at her feet. They'd allowed the dog for emotional support. I'm sorry, Columbo said, sitting across from her. I know this isn't the outcome you wanted. She did it for me, to protect me. I know. But you can't murder someone to protect someone else from manipulation. There are other ways. I would have told him no. If he'd given me that ultimatum, I would have told him to give the money to charity. I didn't need his inheritance. I don't need his approval. I needed him to be a father. Just be present and honest and kind. That was all. Your father was trying in his way. He just didn't know how to make amends without strings attached. It's hard for people to change completely. She wiped her eyes. What happens to my mother? She'll be charged with first-degree murder. She planned it, she executed it, and she showed no remorse. A prosecutor won't take that lightly. And me? That's up to the DA. but I'll do what I can for you. You made a mistake, but you didn't help commit a crime. You just couldn't turn in your mother. A lot of people would have done the same thing. That doesn't make it right. No, it doesn't. But it makes it human. Columbo stood to leave, then turned back. One more thing. Your father's last word was your mother's name. But it wasn't an accusation. Dr. Missant, Garrison told me that in cases of digitalis poisoning, people often have visual disturbances, hallucinations. Your father might have seen your mother, or thought he saw her. Or he might have been asking for her, for forgiveness maybe, or understanding. You'll never know for sure. But I wanted you to know there's another possibility besides accusation. Maybe, at the end, he was just thinking about someone he'd hurt and wishing he could make it right. Claire nodded, unable to speak. Columbo left her there with her dog and her grief. Day 3. Saturday morning brought grey skies and the threat of rain. Columbo arrived at the station early to finish his paperwork. He hated paperwork, but it was necessary. Every detail had to be documented, every statement recorded, every piece of evidence catalogued. Vivian Ashford had been arraigned Friday night. She'd pled not guilty on advice of her attorney, but everyone knew the trial would be a formality. She'd confessed. The evidence was clear. She'd murdered her ex-husband in cold blood. No matter what her motivations had been, Claire hadn't been charged here. The DA was still deciding. Columbo had argued strenuously that she'd acted in shock, that she'd made a terrible mistake, but hadn't conspired to commit murder. The DA was considering obstruction charges, but with a plea deal attached. Community service, probation, no jail time. It was the best Columbo could do. Around 10 o'clock, Columbo got a call. It was Claire's attorney. Claire wanted to see him. Could he come to her house? He drove to Brentwood, found her sitting in her backyard garden with Bailey. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red, her face puffy. "Thank you for coming, Lieutenant." "Of course. What can I do for you?" "I need to tell you something. Something I didn't say before." Columbo pulled up a chair and waited. "My father did call me Tuesday morning. He did want to tell me something. But it wasn't about dinner plans. He told me about the will provision. About the ultimatum." "He told you?" "Yes. He said he was making me primary beneficiary, but that there was a condition. I had to publicly reconcile with him, write a statement for his memorial service, talk about our reconciliation, basically validate his redemption narrative, and I had to agree to limit contact with my mother. He didn't say cut her off completely, but he said appropriate boundaries were necessary. If I refused, the inheritance would go to the UCLA English department." "What did you say?" "I told him I'd think about it. I was furious, but I didn't want to have that fight over the phone. I planned to tell him Tuesday night that I didn't want his money, that I wouldn't let him manipulate me." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because it gives me a motive. It makes me look like I wanted him dead before he could formalize that with provision. But I didn't kill him, Lieutenant. I swear I didn't." Columbo studied her carefully. "I believe you. But you're right, it does complicate things. The DA might see it differently. There's more." She took a deep breath. "When I got to my father's house Tuesday night and found him dying after he said my mother's name, he tried to say something else. I didn't tell you because I was protecting her. But he said, 'I heard,' just those 2 words, 'I heard.' He heard what? I think he heard my mother. Earlier, when she was there poisoning him, maybe she said something. Maybe he heard something that made him realize what was happening. I don't know. But those were his last words. Vivienne, I heard." Columbo sat back. He heard what no one else did. "What?" "Nothing. Just something about the case. Thank you for telling me, Dr. Ashford. This doesn't change anything about your mother, but it helps me understand what happened." He stood to leave. "Lieutenant, do you think my father suffered at the end?" Dr. Garrison said digitalis poisoning is unpleasant but not agonizing. Mostly nausea, confusion, weakness. Your father would have felt sick, maybe scared, but by the time you got there, he was probably too far gone to feel much. And he had you with him. That matters. Does it? Yeah, it does. No one should die alone. Your father had his daughter holding his hand. However he felt about his life, about his mistakes, at the end he had that. It's more than some people get. The trial of Vivian Ashford was scheduled for January. She remained in custody, denied bail as a flight risk. Her attorney was planning a defense based on diminished capacity, years of financial abuse, emotional trauma, a moment of madness. It probably wouldn't work. The planning was too careful, the execution too deliberate. Claire was offered a plea deal, plead guilty to obstruction, accept 2 years probation and 100 hours of community service. She took it, better than risking a trial and possible jail time. Malcolm Ashford's memorial service was held at UCLA on a rainy Saturday 2 weeks after his death. 100 people attended, colleagues, former students, friends. Claire gave a eulogy. It was honest. She talked about her father's brilliance, his generosity, his warmth. She also talked about his flaws, his addiction, the pain he'd caused. She didn't pretend he'd been perfect. She didn't validate his redemption narrative. She just told the truth. Columbo attended, sitting in the back. He always tried to attend victims' memorial services. It reminded him why he did this work, because every victim was a person, not just a case, because every death meant a hole in the world, a space where someone used to be. After the service, he stood in the rain looking at a photograph of Malcolm Ashford. Distinguished, silver-haired, bow-tied, a man who'd loved literature and words. A man who'd struggled with demons. A man who'd hurt people and tried to make it right. A man who'd been murdered by someone he'd hurt too deeply to forgive. That evening, Columbo sat at his kitchen table with a sandwich and a beer. His wife was at her sister's for the weekend. The house was quiet. The dog they'd gotten, a new Basset Hound puppy, against Columbo's better judgment, was asleep at his feet. He thought about the case. About Malcolm Ashford, who'd tried to control everyone around him, even in death. About Vivienne, who'd decided that murder was the only way to protect her daughter from manipulation. About Claire, who'd loved both her parents and been caught between them. There were no good guys in this story, just people making terrible choices for complicated reasons. The thing that stuck with him was those last words, "I heard." Malcolm Ashford had heard something. His ex-wife's voice, maybe, as she delivered the poisoned coffee, or her footsteps as she left. Or maybe just the truth, the recognition that this was revenge, that his attempt at redemption had failed, that some wounds couldn't be healed with gestures and words. He heard what no one else did. The sound of his past catching up to him. The price of decades of harm, coming due at last. Columbo finished his sandwich, gave the crust to the dog, and washed his plate. Tomorrow was Sunday. He'd sleep in, read the paper, maybe take the dog for a walk. Maybe call his wife, tell her about the case, listen to her wise perspective on the whole mess. And Monday, there'd be another case, another death, another puzzle, another family destroyed by violence or greed or desperation or love gone wrong. But tonight, he was just tired. Sunday morning, Columbo did sleep in until 7:30, which was late for him. He made coffee, read the paper, took the puppy for a walk around the neighborhood. The puppy was clumsy and enthusiastic, getting tangled in the leash, trying to chase birds, eating leaves. "You're gonna be a handful," Columbo told the dog. "But I guess that's okay. Life's too short for easy dogs." His wife called around noon. He told her about the case, leaving out the gory details, just the broad strokes. A professor murdered by his ex-wife, daughter caught in the middle. "That's sad," his wife said. "All that anger, holding on for so long. Yeah, I keep thinking, if Vivienne had just let it go, if she'd just accepted Malcolm's attempts at restitution for what they were, he'd still be alive. Claire would still have both her parents. But anger's like that, you know? It doesn't let go easy. And the daughter, she's okay? She will be. Eventually. She's strong, smarter than both her parents put together. She'll figure it out. You sound like you like her. I do. She made bad choices, but she was trying to do the right thing. That counts for something. After he hung up, Columbo sat on the couch with the dog sprawled across his lap. He thought about calling Claire, checking on her, but decided against it. She needed space. She needed time to grieve and heal and rebuild. She didn't need a rumpled detective calling to make sure she was okay. Besides, he'd done his job. The killer was in custody. The victim had justice. The case was closed. Well, mostly closed. There was still the question of the window. Columbo sat up, disturbing the dog. The window in Malcolm's study, open on Monday, closed by the housekeeper, open again Tuesday. If Vivian had been there Tuesday afternoon around 4:30, delivering the poisoned coffee, she might have opened the window. To let out the smell of the coffee maybe, to make sure the room aired out before Claire arrived. Or maybe Malcolm had opened it himself after Vivienne left, feeling sick, overheated, desperate for fresh air. Either way, it wasn't the clue Columbo had thought it was, just a window, opened for ordinary reasons. Not everything meant something. He settled back into the couch, and the dog climbed back into his lap. Monday morning, Columbo returned to work. There was a new case waiting, a body found in Griffith Park, apparent robbery gone wrong. He picked up the file, skimmed the details, grabbed his coat. As he walked to his car, the Peugeot was smoking more than usual. He really needed to get it looked at. He passed the UCLA campus. Students were walking to class, backpacks slung over their shoulders, laughing and talking. The world kept turning. Life kept happening. Somewhere in that campus, in that English department, Malcolm Ashford's colleagues were teaching classes, holding office hours, doing the work he'd done for 34 years. Someone else would take over his courses. Someone else would occupy his office. Eventually, he'd become a name on a plaque, a footnote in department history. But for Claire, for Vivian, for all the people whose lives he'd touched, he'd be more than that. He'd be the man who tried to change and couldn't change enough. The man who hurt people and tried to heal them, but didn't know how. The man who died on his study floor, clutching his chest, whispering his ex-wife's name. Columbo got in his car. It took 2 tries to start and drove toward Griffith Park. The fog was rolling in again, turning the city soft and mysterious. Somewhere in that fog was a body, a crime scene, a family about to receive terrible news. And it was Columbo's job to make sense of it, to find the truth, to speak for the dead. He'd do it the same way he always did, slowly, carefully, asking questions that seemed stupid but weren't, noticing things other people missed, following the evidence wherever it led, because that's what he did, that's who he was, a rumpled detective in a beat-up car, solving murders one question at a time. The city disappeared into fog behind him. And so, another case closed. Another truth uncovered. Lieutenant Columbo has returned to his life, his wife, his rumpled car, his new puppy. The city moves around him, indifferent to the small dramas of murder and justice. Los Angeles breathes, its millions of stories continuing, intersecting, diverging. In this case, he heard what no one else did. Was the key, but not in the way anyone expected. Malcolm Ashford heard his ex-wife's presence in his home, heard the sound of betrayal, heard the truth of unforgivable wounds, but more than that, he heard what his daughter was trying to tell him all along, that love can't be bought or manipulated or controlled. That redemption isn't something you can demand from others, that some prices must be paid, even years later. Columbo heard it too, in his own way. He heard the lies in the timeline, the grief in the daughter's voice, the anger in the ex-wife's justifications. He heard what everyone was saying beneath their words, the truths they were trying to hide. That's his gift, listening to what people aren't saying as carefully as what they are. As you drift towards sleep now, let this story settle. Let your mind release it. Let the questions fade, the answers rest. Tomorrow brings new mysteries, new questions, new stories. But tonight, there is only this: quiet, darkness, peace. Your breathing is slow and steady, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Your body is heavy and warm, sinking into the mattress. Your thoughts are drifting like fog, soft and shapeless. The room around you is safe. The world is distant. Nothing requires your attention. Nothing needs to be solved. Close your eyes if they're not closed already. Feel the weight of sleep approaching, gentle and inevitable. Let yourself tip toward it. Let yourself fall. Your presence here matters. Share this story with someone who loves mysteries and needs rest. Until next time, sleep deeply. Dream peacefully. We'll meet again soon for another mystery. Good night, dear listeners.